You know, I just can't think of anything that really sets Margy apart.
The Margy I know is always festooned with jewels, feathers, and wonderful hats.
The Margy I know is a strong character, an independent character, a fun character.
The Margy I know won't fail to ask you to do something, even if she knows it's going to embarrass you to tears.
An absolute first-class Alaska original.
Well, Margy that I know is just a lot of fun. She is always bubbling over, joyous, and has a fancy hat.
I always introduce her to people as Alaska's own Lady Gaga.
I think of this petite, energetic, capable, persistent, get things done lady.
Margy's known as the Hat Lady, and Margy's known for her incredible style and flair and all those wonderful qualities. But I know Margy, who's a brilliant participant in life of Alaska professionally and in business terms and in moral terms.
There's a very nurturing, compassionate, loving side of Margy that unless you get a chance to hear of her day-to-day escapades, you don't realize how many incredible things she's doing.
She's interested in stuff that affects people, what's going on in the community.
My friend Margy Johnson, petite, proper person, always wearing hats, always wearing gloves, having tea parties for people. And at those tea parties, friendships are forged, big problems are solved, and people leave feeling comforted.
Margy, it's you.
I'm sure there's something. There has. Margy's well known, and she has this persona, and I'm sure there's something that really, really is singular, identifying signature fact. Who Margy? How people see her.
She was an equal opportunity welcoming committee for people. So she certainly took care of Senator Stevens, and she took care of Bill Sheffield as a Democrat, and Senator Stevens who was a Republican, and many, many, many other people as well.
When I really got to know Margy was when she was a proprietor and the sales manager and a waitress.
She owned and operated the best hotel in town.
She threw the drunks out at night by hand if she had to.
Owned and operated the best bar in town.
And dining room manager and sales operation.
She checked people in, she collected the money, she cleaned the rooms, did the cooking when she had to.
Owned and operated the best travel agency in town.
And made the beds when needed to at the Reluctant Fishermen in Cordova.
I think she was quite instrumental in the relationship with Alaska Airlines, making sure to take the first fish to Seattle, and I'm sure you'll talk to others who were personally involved in her persuasion on that subject.
If Margy asks you to do something, say yes quickly, because you're going to say yes anyway, and it's less painful if you do it quickly.
In fact, I am back to the whole Copper River salmon marketing story about the time that that was breaking, and Margy had talked everyone that would listen into adopting that marketing program. Again, not the least of which was Alaska Airlines. At one of our community advisory board meetings, she suggested that gee, why didn't Alaska Airlines paint an airplane like a salmon? And lo and behold, we did.
Margy always fought for what she thought was right. She was always pro-business, pro-industry. She understood what it took to create jobs and what it took to economically run her city. So she was always a great supporter of the seafood processing industry and really any industry that was helpful to Cordova.
The mermaid. She called herself the mermaid. And everybody's allowed an alter ego, but I didn't know she had the costume.
Margy thinks she's a mermaid.
We said, let's go over to Halibut Cove to the Saltry and have lunch. And Margy says, kid, I need your help. I'm going to do something. I said, okay. So she said, can you come into the ladies' room with me? So we came out, and she was, she had on her mermaid veil and her dress, and she has little fins that she carries, so once she's reclined, she can put them on, because you cannot walk in the fins. So I'm walking her out, and she's shuffling like a geisha. And we go inside the restaurant, and who's there but Clem Tillian? He goes, oh, Margy.
My father was the keeper of the Eddystone Light, and he slept with a mermaid one fine night. From this union there came three, a porpoise and a porgy, and the other was me. Oh, the wind blows free. Oh, for a life on the rolling sea.
She's a hoot. And I said, Margy, I didn't know you actually had a costume. She's like, oh, I've got 3 or 4. I always wore them in the parade. What a treat for Cordova.
It's hard to pick out that individual distinctive trait of any individual. Margy?
She's very persistent, but she also connects people to each other. And so to make anything happen from Providence to Cordova to, she was the head of the International Trade Office when Frank Murkowski was the governor of Alaska. And that is, how do you introduce trade and commerce to people in other countries from Alaska? And she was the spectacular person who was the face of Alaska.
When I first was introduced to her when she was the international trade rep for Governor Murkowski, and at the time she was so busy running from country to country helping put business deals together to grow the economy of the state that I didn't really get to know her, but I sure got a flavor of her. And there was nothing, absolutely nothing frivolous about her. So maybe that's why I never thought of her as Margy of the Hats, because to me she was Margy of developing international business for Alaska.
That this little girl came up to her one day and said, Miss Margy, I have a play at the school. Would you come and see the play? Because I don't have any parents to come. And Margy said, I'd love to. When is it? And the little girl said, tomorrow. Well, Margy had a board meeting tomorrow. And as it turns out, at the appropriate time, Margy stood up in the middle of a very serious conversation and left to go to the school where the little girl was sitting out in front waiting for Miss Margy.
When we developed the Cancer Center at Providence, it became evident that we were going to need somebody to be the kind of the voice of the Cancer Center to the public and to be the ambassador for the Cancer Center. And as Margy was changing her profession at the time and was kind of undecided as to what her next steps was, I took the liberty of sitting down and saying, Margy, you have more to offer to the people that have cancer today than anybody else I know. In the mission statement of the Sisters of Providence, they give particular care to the poor and the vulnerable. And any patient that has cancer is automatically vulnerable, very vulnerable. And Margy has a very wonderful way of healing that vulnerability and making people feel better about where they are in life, what is in the future.
A few years ago, when my mom was in the hospital, and we knew her time was short, that Margy came to me and she said, Betsy, everybody needs a junkyard dog as a friend. And I want you to know that I'm your junkyard dog.
You
my inspiration. Gaze on never blue.
And underneath Margie's hat ticks one of the best brains in the state.
Margie is the kind of a person whom you meet in Alaska and you know her, and almost wherever you go where anything is happening, Margie is there.
One of the neat characteristics about Margie is that she embodies sort of the old Alaska spirit.
You know, this is the kind of place that you get to be whomever you want to be. And then you might just kind of check out of that and go live in the mountains or in a cabin and come back as somebody else. Margie might do that 3 times in 1 week.
I think we'll always remember Margie as one of those rare people that comes along once in a while. And Alaska's better off have had the opportunity to have her.
Margie is not she gets a lot of attention because she's Margie, but she doesn't crave attention. She craves doing good things. And if you're ever around some good thing happening, you're probably going to run into Margie.
I find it very hard to think about Margy Johnson retiring. I would say to Margie, as I have done in my own life, after an active life, keep involved, keep your hand in, keep interested in the things you obviously love. So I don't think it's a question so much as retirement, but a new chapter begins.
Keep being Margie. Remember where your heart, your passions, your roots are. And if you're interested in putting down new roots, and I know you are with your son Wade in San Francisco, make sure you're Margie there, because what makes you special on this planet is exactly who and what you've been doing all your life.
I know Margie can't leave Alaska, forever. I mean, she'll be back, time after time after time. I don't think there's any question in any of our minds about that.
I don't think she's going to retire and recede. I think she will proceed and excel like she always does.
Keep on doing what you're doing. You know, the older we get and the more assured we are of who we are, my feeling is, and I think Margie must share this, what are they going to do to me? Send me to Vietnam? You can do whatever you want. And I think that as long as she can find ways to reach people, help people, and have fun, she'll never retire from that.
You're an exceptional person, Margie. Thank you for being our friend.
Margie, I'm always thinking about you, Margie.
So, thinking about Margie, and I can't really, think of one thing, but I'll tell you, when we got to Paris, she fit right in.
Margie doesn't have 1,000 hats probably, but she's probably coming close.
Margie would put the British royal family to shame when it comes to hats.
She has hundreds of hats. Hundreds of hats.
The Ascot races have nothing on Margie for hats.
So, my friend Miss Margie, hats off to you. And look around this room. It's full of your friends who are junkyard dogs.
Hats off to Margie.
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 Hats off to Margie and everybody else who thinks that hats make the person. They don't. The person makes the hat.
So, hats off to Margie.
There is really only one. Oh, Margie. 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 It's you.